Welcome back, everyone. It is September 2nd, so the beginning of September. Temperatures are dropping, but the emotion of college football is through the roof. Talk to us about it, Colin.
Oh, you damn right, Dave. We're so happy. Season started. Week one's in the books. It was an absolute banger. So many things solidified for us. We were right about a lot of things so far, the way it looks. We were wrong about some things, the way it looks already. Hey, we're going to get right out there in front of anything we're wrong about. We're going to address it, and we're going to address what we think we were wrong about. Anything we were right about, hey, we're just going to let those things go under the rug and let you guys figure those out for yourself. We're pretty confident in most of our takes here. We got the Notre Dame hat on. Mentioned that Notre Dame money line against Texas A&M. If you followed us on that, you're a happy camper. 8-4, week one in the books for the bets this week. Solid start to the season for us at 8-4. Today we're going to go ahead and drop our top 25 rankings, not ratings. Our top 25 rankings are going to be based solely on, eye test, win-loss record. There is such thing in our eyes as good losses. So this is totally different than our rating system. This is going to be strictly rankings. Remember, our ratings were neutral sites, neutral playing fields, all things equal. This new ranking system that we're dropping is based upon everything that these teams have given us so far. After we drop that rankings real quick, we're just going to throw that at you pretty quick. After we get through that, we're going to do a little game review from our top games. Obviously, we can't get into every single game as we don't have all the time in the world here. We're going to miss out on a couple players that you're probably looking forward to hearing about just because that game kind of went pretty lopsided or as we expected. So, we're not going to hit on everything. And then after that, we're going to drop what would be our top 12 playoff structure so far with those teams. And then we're going to get out of here. And down the road this week, we're going to do a preview for week 2 and drop our best bets. I'm going to kick it back over to Dave here for a minute, let him get after it for us. Dave, let's get deep in it here.
Absolutely, Colin. A lot of crazy stuff happened, which is why we love college football. This is why we enjoy it. This is why we thrive off of it. Going right off of that, we are going to hit our top 25. So I'm going to hit it right off to us with number 25. Colin, talk to us about number 25, Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State slid in here after a 21-3 convincing win over North Dakota. And then that 24, we have NC State. They got out of there with a 38-21 W against Western Carolina. At 23, we have Kansas got out of there with a dub. 22, Nebraska. 21, Arizona. All those teams got out of there with the win week 1 like they were supposed to do, took care of business. At 20, we have Auburn. They got out of there with a 73-3 win against Alabama A&M. 19, Georgia Tech. As you know, they took down Florida State in week 0. They are now moving to 2-0. Iowa at 18, Oklahoma State at 17. 16, we have K-State. 15, Michigan. 14, Oklahoma. 13, Tennessee. 12, Utah. 11, USC. 10, Mizzou. 9, Oregon. 8, Miami. 7, Penn State. 6, Notre Dame. 5, Ole Miss. 4, Ohio State. 3, Alabama. 2, Texas. Number 1, no surprise here, Georgia. Dave, what do you kind of think about this top 25? Give us your thoughts here. What's it look like to you so far?
I know there's a lot of people that are high on Oregon. I thought Oregon did play well. Dylan Gabriel did a great job at the QB position. But we have a number 9 because, again, you have Georgia, which played Clemson. Clemson, although they didn't play amazing, they were a pretty consistent team. So that's why we have Georgia at number 1 because they are
Dave, that Oregon game, man, it just didn't make any sense to me. You look at the statistics, the stats of the game, and it looked like they should have been blowing them out, right? But then you look at the scoreboard, and Oregon just hanging around by, 3, 7, one possession games. So it really was a shock to see them go this deep in the game with this low margin of victory. They did get the W at 24-14 against Idaho. Really shocking to me to see the score go that low. So naturally, this is an eye test thing for us. Like we said, you're going to see teams make big jumps, big falls. This is how we like it. This is exactly what we think it should be. Oregon slides way down for us, Dave. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, one of the big ones that a lot of people are probably going to give us some hate about, especially from the state of Florida, is Florida State. Florida State, what happened? They lost to Georgia Tech. And as we're sitting here on a Monday night, they are currently losing to Boston College. How do we get to such a big decline from last year, potential national championship team, to now they're not even in our top 25 week 1?
Yeah, Dave, this is wild to me, man. We were we were pretty high on Florida State here. Obviously, we were one of the outlets here that you look at or watch or however you tune into us. And Florida State wasn't in our top 12 playoff picture. So we were one of the oddballs on that. Still, obviously, very confident in how that's looking. That's playing out pretty well for us in the situation. But by no means, Dave, did I think they were going to be 0-1 or staring down the barrel of 0-2 here. This is wild, Dave. I don't really know what to say about this. That defensive line's not really stopping the run like I kind of expected. DJU's looking a little bit worse than I expected. I kept telling myself, hey, he's going to take a step forward. This is going to be it right here. Florida State, Mike Norvell is really going to get him going in the right direction finally. And, Dave, here we are again, questioning DJU. I think this team's only going to go as far as he can take them. And right now, that doesn't look great.
I mean, right along with Florida State, we have LSU, Clemson, and Texas A&M as our honorable mention. Out of those four, I think Texas A&M is the one team that probably has the best chance of getting into that top 25 because although they did lose, they lost to a pretty solid Notre Dame team that really, once Riley Leonard was able to get it going, they kind of figured it out pretty quickly. And I'm not saying Texas A&M was bad by any means, but, we kind of knew coming into this that Notre Dame was a strong team.
Well, we're gonna talk about that game in a little bit, but to hit something quick here, neither quarterback looked good in that game, Dave. Neither quarterback looked good at all. I don't think either quarterback got over 160 yards. I think Wegeman closer to 100 than he was 150, maybe right at 100 to be exact. Maybe a couple interceptions in there. Just not good quarterback play from either one of these guys. Riley Leonard, the difference was for him. He was able to get out, use his legs a little bit. That did help. But yeah, man, neither one of these quarterbacks impressed me at all. I would tend to agree with your A&M take, most likely to get back in the top 25 out of these teams. Florida State really not looking like they're going to do much here. Clemson obviously hit one hell of a roadblock with number one Georgia, but Clemson had absolutely nothing going. Cade Klubnik, absolutely nothing going. So that kind of leaves LSU. And Dave, I don't see a whole lot of difference here in this LSU and A&M. A&M better on defense, LSU better on offense. Kyron Lacey was a monster for LSU. But yeah, I don't see either one. I don't actually see any of these teams getting in our top 25 here soon. So we'll just see where this kind of takes us, Dave.
Yeah. So, I mean, that rounds out our top 25. We always like to add a couple honorable mentions because once you get towards the bottom of that list, there's a lot of teams that sometimes you could interchange there, depending on the week-to-week performances. Starting off, we're going to start talking about Thursday night's game, UNC versus Minnesota, probably the biggest game of that night. So, Colin, talk to us about what happened. Max Johnson, that was a very horrific scene. I mean, even if you don't have any kind of medical training, you look at that play and you go, something's not good there.
Yeah, Dave, obviously we were at the Mizzou game watching Mizzou put a thrashing on Murray State. What a time it was, you and I, to get out and do that. But yeah, the best game on Thursday night, that UNC Minnesota game, you do hate to see Max Johnson go down with an injury again. You really wanted him to get this career going, and it's just a tough scene there. Hate it for Max Johnson. Prayers up from DeepThreatSportz podcast to him. Hopefully for a speedy recovery. And the future, we're not sure what it holds for him, but hopefully something good for that young man as he deserves it. Connor Harrell came in and replaced him. Kind of did damage control a little bit. It wasn't the best of games. Omarion Hampton was absolutely the whole entire team for UNC there for them to go ahead and get out with this victory. Max Brosmer coming in, transferring into Minnesota. He looked okay, took some sacks, held onto the ball a little bit too long. Maybe the game was a little bit fast compared to what he was used to. But yeah, this was a great Thursday night game. Great test for both of these teams early in the season. We just hate to see what happened to Max Johnson, and hopefully both of these teams kind of trend in the right direction and build off of this game a little bit here, Dave.
Absolutely. Looks like Max Johnson had broken leg. That's really what it comes down to. So, realistically, he's out for the rest of the year. Maybe we'll see him next year in the spring again. But on the other side of this, we're heading over to the state of Texas. We got TCU versus Stanford. How did that game play out for us?
Yeah, this game was Friday night, Dave, the TCU Stanford game. What an absolute game, man. This was exciting from the start. Both these teams, not real high expectations. Stanford kind of comes out early, jumps on them a little bit. The quarterback had great quarterback play out of them. And, TCU takes the game over late. You know, great receiving core for Hoover there with Beck, Williams, and Richardson. A lot of good guys to throw the ball to. What an entertaining game. TCU was able to go ahead and leg that out. I know I was locked in the whole entire time. I ended up taking Stanford first half, and what an exciting game that was.
Next, going from one big college football area to another. Now we're going into Georgia. We had Georgia play Clemson in Atlanta. Tons of fans there. Georgia ended up securing the bag. Initially, it looked like it was going to be a pretty competitive game all throughout the game, but Carson Beck was able to get it figured out. The Georgia defense, oh my goodness, they were dominating Clemson. Talk to us. What did you see on that game, Colin? Anything that stuck out to you or anything that you might have even seen? Hey, maybe they need to improve here.
No, I can't look back on anything and say there's something different that Georgia should have done. They really dominated that game from the start. Kind of slow with the scoring early on, but you never felt like Clemson was ever in control of that game. Never felt like Georgia was being outcoached or outsmarted. Georgia was in full control. That defense was dominant. Made Cade Klubnik look like a freshman all over again. We were really thinking maybe he would take a big stride here into this next season. Obviously, meeting the buzzsaw like Georgia, it's gonna be tough to get a good reading on what to expect from him for the full season, but not impressed at all in game one of the season. Carson Beck got it going, especially in the second half. I want to touch on one thing. We talked about how anything we mentioned that doesn't go how we had planned or how we thought and mentioned on this show, we're going to discuss it. We had talked about Oscar Delp a little bit, really getting things going at that tight end position for them to replace Brock Bowers, who went to the draft. Delp was a non-factor in this game at all. I think he maybe only had one target, no receptions. So big whiff on us on that part. But hey, maybe he gets it going. Plenty more games to go for them. So maybe he does get it turned around. But no, Dave, this Georgia team looks complete. They look dominant. They're going to stay in that one spot for us for a while. I do expect a little bit of pressure on Dabo Swinney. This game was an absolute lopsided performance in a 34-3 victory. Don't think Dabo or Clemson or the Clemson fans or administration thought it would be this lopsided. So expect the conversations around his name to probably ramp up just a little bit here, Dave.
Absolutely. You know it. I have been on Dabo before the season even got started. So I expect a lot more, but Clemson, didn't quite perform like we wanted them to. But going from one ACC team to the next game we got is Virginia Tech. They lost as well to Vanderbilt. Usually you look at this game on paper, you kind of automatically assume Virginia Tech is going to take the win. But did not go their way. Is the ACC falling apart? What's going on here?
Yeah, Dave, this was by far the most disappointing performance from any team for me in week one. We were really high on Virginia Tech. We actually had Virginia Tech sliding into our playoffs. Obviously, it's not the end of the road for them, but first loss of the season coming week one to a team like Vanderbilt, not going to help you get into that playoff spot at all. Vanderbilt is a bottom tier team in the SEC. Virginia Tech was supposed to be slotting in as a top tier team in the ACC. They were double digit favorites going into this game. I know we were on them going into this game. Just very, very disappointing. Drones really slow at getting it going. They had 19 returning starters on this team. They should have never got off to a slow start here. I know it's game one. I know there's jitters, and I know you have a lot of, hype surrounding your program going into this season, but unacceptable first half. Really, really bad. I don't have anything good to say about it in the first half. Second half looked a little bit different for them. Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt was all over the field. Virginia Tech had no answers for him. When I was watching Drones a lot, he just didn't get rid of the ball. He couldn't get through his progressions. If the first read wasn't there, he was rolling out right away, kind of playing on his heels a little bit. So very, very disappointing, Dave. Obviously this slides them out of everything for us, and hopefully Virginia Tech can get it turned around and get their name back in conversations by the end of the season. Obviously, they went out 11-1 still in play. But they really got to show us something different here because that was a pretty poor performance. I do want to tip the cap to Vanderbilt here. What a great start for them. Exciting for them. This isn't something that always happens for this Vanderbilt program. Build on it. Turn it into something here.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Diego Pavia. I never truly heard of the guy. Looks like he went to school at a military institute, so it's probably why we don't know a lot about him. But I love me a quarterback that can run. If you can run,
well, Dave, I think he was actually at New Mexico or New Mexico State last year. I don't remember which one. And I'm pretty sure it might have been New Mexico, because wasn't it New Mexico who beat Auburn at the end of last season? It was either New Mexico or New Mexico State. He was a part of the team that took down Auburn at the end of last season. So, yeah, Diego Pavia is a stud, and he can do some good things for you. Going to turn the ball over. He's going to do some dumb things here or there too, but there is times where he can be electric.
Absolutely. Talking about studs, Harrison Wallace, Penn State, West Virginia. I personally thought Penn State was probably going to, knock West Virginia around pretty hard, but it ended up being a lot closer of a game than I expected. It was a fun game, but talk to us, Con. What did you see from Penn State? What did you see from West Virginia? Because I thought West Virginia wasn't great, but they played darn good considering it's Penn State.
Yeah, Drew Aller and Harrison Wallace, great duo here, really showing some things early. He had 5 catches, I'm pretty sure, followed up by a deep ball for a touchdown. Ohio State transfer receiver Julian Fleming, who we've mentioned here a few times, was kind of not found. Like we'd said, we're going to point things out that we were wrong on, and we were wrong about that. Not seeming to find him in week 1 here. But, yeah, Andy Kotelnicki had this offense looking totally different. Penn State dominated this game before the weather delay, after the weather delay. What's funny, you talk about how you felt like the score was closer than most people thought it would be. That's correct, because most people thought West Virginia would hang into this game. Penn State going ahead and getting it done, 34-12. Really dominating performance by them. Defense looked great. People were pretty concerned with how Penn State would get off, starting this season. Could they go in and dominate a West Virginia team who had a lot of momentum coming off the season last year? Penn State did just that, answered all of the questions, and Penn State's off to a hot start here, exactly like you and I thought, Dave. We've been high on Penn State. We're going to stay high on Penn State. Go Drew Aller. Love this team. James Franklin, keep doing your thing.
Then on the other hand, of a lot of ACC teams not doing good, we've got Florida, Miami. Miami pulls it off, beats Florida. And I don't know if you saw it, Colin, but the Miami players, as they're celebrating, they're walking over to the Florida recruits and saying, "You're at the wrong school." I mean, you bring these recruits in wanting them to come to your school, but then you get, knocked in the face like that by a University of Miami. That is tough.
Well, I'm laughing here, Dave, because in the background I have my TV, and it's actually Billy Napier's press conference after this game. And, man, he was getting dominated by a water bottle, too. The guy just can't catch a break right now. Can't get the lid off his water bottle. Can't get the lid off the offense and get the scoring going. Yeah, Florida brought these recruits in. Miami goes in. Probably just recruited them to Miami by themselves after that performance. Absolutely dominated. 41-17 Miami victory down there in the swamp. Graham Mertz gets hurt. DJ Lagway comes in. DJ Lagway thrown into the fire here. What can you really expect? I thought the kid did just fine for what the situation was. That Miami defense really showed out. All the transfers for this Miami team really showed out. Really big fan of Damian Martinez. Xavier Restrepo was absolutely dominant. I love the Cam Ward Xavier Restrepo duo. I don't know what to expect for Billy Napier and this Florida team from this point on. You and I talked about the press conferences afterwards, talked about the write-ups afterwards for the losing team. They're in a really bad spot here, Dave. They could really use this and build some momentum, or they could really use all this bad publicity and go the wrong direction. So just buckle up, Florida Gator fans. I don't know what to expect for you guys, but Miami fans, also buckle up, because you guys are off to the races. We love Miami here. We're all things Miami. Cam Ward's a stud. They dominated the trenches. That's huge for them. Miami, here we go.
Going back to Cam Ward, I'm going to go ahead and make a bold statement based off what I saw. I think he'll finish off in the top 3 of the Heisman contender. I know there's a lot of guys that are potentially.
Whoa, we love that. We love bold takes, Dave. Go Cam Ward.
Hey, I'm all about Cam Ward. So going to another big quarterback, Quinn Ewers, Texas, Colorado State. Texas obviously blows over Colorado State, but even Arch Manning get himself a touchdown. So that's super exciting stuff for the University of Texas. 1, because you perform, like you're supposed to week 1. And then 2, your backup quarterback shows that he can play. And let's talk about Arch Manning, the guy with his, personality, who he is, who he knows, who his family is, has stuck around the University of Texas and been the backup. This is, year 2. how many players are actually going to do that? How many players are going to stay for 2 years, be a backup? I understand that there is very huge upside here for him, but a lot of players would have transferred out, gone to another school, started, got their bag, gone to the NFL, called it good. But I respect Arch Manning, and I'm excited for what's to come after Quinn Ewers with Arch Manning. So, what do you think about Texas, Colin?
Well, yeah, first things first here. I just want to talk about the Arch Manning thing here, too, because it is impressive, man. You're not going to see this a lot in college football these days. I guess you would call it in the modern transfer portal era. But yeah, absolutely impressive that he stayed there. I think it really speaks to Steve Sarkisian and this Texas program and what they have to offer. Really, really impressive. Not to mention, he got to throw a couple balls to, Missouri talent, Ryan Wingo, who went down there to Texas, chose Texas over Missouri, kind of broke my heart. I'm still upset about that. Ryan Wingo's a real stud. He showed that on Saturday. We also took Colorado State to cover plus 35 here. I just want to talk about that once again. Hey, we were wrong about that. So if you followed us there, you did take a loss on that. We thought Colorado State, having a little bit of continuity, would come out and get things flowing a little bit. We knew Texas was going to be a tough opponent, but we kind of thought Colorado State would score a little bit here. Man, they did absolutely nothing, so we're not going to talk about them much here. Out of sight, out of mind. It was awful. Texas, all things were a go. The wide receivers got tons of separation. That was a big question that we had. They looked dominant in the trenches. Man, Quinn Ewers looked really good. Arch Manning looked really good. It's great to have a backup like you talked about. Just a lot of talent here for this Texas team, Dave. They looked well prepared, well coached. Steve Sarkisian has them trending in the right direction yet again. Man, they could really be off to the races here.
I'm excited for Texas, man. I feel like Texas has been kind of lingering and kind of good, kind of not good, and I think Steve Sarkisian's got them going in the right direction. Not to mention nowadays with NIL and all that stuff. Now that you involve money, it changes things a lot. But
well, making the playoffs last year, Dave, and then coming out game one here after obviously losing in the playoffs at some point, and then coming out here game one, not having that playoff hangover. They answered a lot of questions early and just went out and kicked ass and took care of business and left no doubts. Great start.
Another team that left no doubts is a team that people were very curious to see how they would do. The University of Alabama, what has always been a college football powerhouse, is under new leadership. We got Kalen DeBoer over at University of Alabama, but they went over and, just rolled over Western Kentucky. Just crushed them. So I think the big thing here is Jalen Milroe. Usually, in college football, I feel like quarterbacks kind of slowly taper up, but it looks like Jalen Milroe has had a significant, improvement in his game from last year. So I'm excited for Alabama. I am excited for Kalen DeBoer. And I really hope Alabama continues to be in this dynasty because when you lose a guy like Nick Saban, it is tough.
Well, yeah, Dave, they made life absolutely miserable for this Western Kentucky team. They wish they would have never got off the bus, to be honest with you. Jalen Milroe, to your point, looked like a leader, a full-blown leader here. Took a massive step, in my opinion, already. Really shown the things that he can do. Talking about Heisman mentions earlier, this is going to be a guy, his name's going to be surrounded by Heisman talk. Let's talk about Ryan Williams here. Freshman receiver for this Crimson Tide team. So should be a senior in high school. And what an absolute stud this guy was. 2 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. What an absolute problem he's going to be for opposing teams. This Justice Haynes, Jam Miller running back duo showed big things, great at pounding the rock. And, you combine all that with Jalen Milroe, this offense really has a lot of things going their way. Kalen DeBoer has done a fantastic job piecing this all back together and holding everything together around Jalen Milroe. Really use Jalen Milroe's legs, something that we have talked about a little bit on here that Kalen DeBoer is going to do, not just make him go out there and throw the rock 40 times a game. They're going to use his legs here, and they did. That was big. Look for this Alabama team to really shoot to the top. I'm really impressed with how they came out, answered a lot of questions. To the moon they go, Dave.
Going back to college football powerhouses. Next up, we've got Michigan. They played Fresno State. They really struggled. I saw a lot of memes throughout, all of social media talking about they were looking for the nerdy guy, the bald nerdy guy. We all know who that is. Connor Stallions. Was he the key to their success, Colin? Or do we just have to wait a little bit and let them get their footing straight?
Well, I guess time will tell. But it did look like they really struggled, especially early on in this game. Fresno State really hung around. the quarterback controversy. Davis Warren comes out as the starting quarterback of this game. Did not see that coming. All things we had heard and read about was Alex Orji. Man, the Davis Warren was a surprise. It looked like he was going to be the guy to come in now and throw the ball around, and Alex Orji is going to come in and be the guy to run the ball. I wasn't impressed with either one of them. Wasn't impressed with this offense at all. Thought they had a really poor game plan of this Fresno State game. The defense looked very sound as we expected. Looked like Colston Loveland was going to be the real only thing in that receiving core. Nothing else looked promising. The receivers weren't getting a whole lot of separation. Quarterbacks weren't throwing nobody open. Was really surprised Donovan Edwards wasn't really the guy we all expected him to be coming in. Obviously, it's game one. A lot of things can change here. But yeah, he wasn't what we expected. This Michigan offense was really bland. And maybe they were just hiding things still. Maybe they weren't showing a full game plan, trying to keep guys healthy. Who knows? It's early in the season. Some of these teams don't want to show everything. But yeah, Dave, I'm not real impressed with this Sharon Moore-led Michigan Wolverines team just yet. But hey, maybe they'll get things going in week 2.
Absolutely. Another team I'm very excited to see in week 2 is Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Texas was arguably Texas A&M, that is, by the way, Texas A&M. So Notre Dame, Texas A&M was probably arguably one of the best games on Saturday. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I didn't think, neither one of the quarterbacks were great. Me personally, I'm not big on Riley Leonard. I know he was over at Duke with Mike Elko. That was a big topic, I guess you would say here is, former head coach playing against their former quarterback. There was a lot of talks of, hey, how they're going to make a difference. And, even Mike Elko talked about, yes, it will make some level of difference, but at the end of the day, we're just coming out to play. But at the end of the day, Riley Leonard didn't have a terrible game, but he also took care of the ball. He didn't have any turnovers. So I thought it was an overall decent performance, but I hope he can only improve from here.
Yeah, I think both teams to be successful need both these quarterbacks to play much better than what they did because it wasn't a very good showing in my opinion. Both these quarterbacks had over 30 passing attempts. Connor Wegeman around the 100 yards, Riley Leonard around the 150-yard mark. Wegeman throwing 2 interceptions. Just not impressive at all by either one of these quarterbacks. Both these teams appear to be a run-first offense anyway, so that may help both these teams down the road. That Notre Dame offensive line held up pretty well for the depth concerns that we've been having on this show, so I am pretty impressed by that so far. Marcus Freeman got that team fired up before they ran out of the tunnel. That was a really cool video to watch. I don't know if anybody saw that. He was pumping the team up, using all the energy from the crowd to help them as well. I love seeing that. A lot of promise for this Notre Dame team. But I want to say this Texas A&M team looked pretty well too. I mean, game one, tough opponent in that Notre Dame team. I don't really know what to expect from Wegeman the rest of the way. I really hope Elko gets him going in the right direction. Colin Klein comes in from Kansas State to be the offensive coordinator there, so he should really get Wegeman going in the right direction as well. I do expect this offense to take big steps throughout the season. A lot of new faces there, so maybe just some early on question marks that they'll have to work through the struggles to get things going in the right direction. But yeah, this Notre Dame team looking really solid in the top 10 here, really solidifying a playoff push. That's going to be a big win on the resume. Probably maybe the toughest game on the schedule for them the whole way, Dave. So what a great start for this Notre Dame team. Really impressed with how they looked so far. That defense was very, very stout. Love it so far, Dave.
Another big game that we have, and a team that, probably underperformed a little bit, considering the expectations, was University of Oregon. They played Idaho. They did have almost 500 yards of offense, but speaking of offense, their offensive line looked rough. I mean, I know there was a lot of shifts, a lot of movement going on there. Then you have Dylan Gabriel that has a ball that he drops, recovered by Idaho. Luckily, they're not able to convert on that, but not quite the performance you want. This should be one of those games that realistically Oregon should blow out Idaho.
Yeah, Dave, this wasn't a real impressive performance by this Oregon team, especially with how high we were on this team. I don't want to get too discouraged. I don't want to put too much into this. It's game one. It's jitters. It's a lot of things going into consideration here. But this Idaho team's not that impressive. So, what a lopsided score to be 24-14 for this Oregon team, especially us having them in our top 4, getting an automatic a bye in that first round of the playoffs. So what's crazy to me is Dylan Gabriel. You look at the stats. Gabriel threw for 380 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you ask, how was the score like this when they lit up the score stat sheet a little bit? Tez Johnson had 2 receiving touchdowns, 81 yards. You know, I, it's just a weird game. There was some turnovers, some penalties, a missed field goal, just a really weird game, really weird flow. You keep looking up at the score and you're like, how is this the score? How is it this close? What is going on? They were able to do what good teams do and just out talent and edge their way through some of these tougher games. So they got out of here with the win, Dave. That's all that really matters. Game 1, we're going to put that behind them. We are going to punish them a little bit like we did in the top 25, but I don't think they should be too discouraged for the rest of the season.
On the other hand, we have a team that, in my personal opinion, performed a lot better than I expected them to. USC knocking off LSU. LSU did have some questions there, but I think the big thing here is something that has always been talked about with Lincoln Riley's teams. Defense, defense, defense. He normally can't figure out the defense, but in this occasion, they hired, I want to say it's D'Anton Lynn from UCLA. And I mean, this defense looked completely different. I mean, they were getting after it. They were, trying to get to the ball. They're trying to get, they played great. So maybe Lincoln Riley has figured out his head. Maybe he found the guy that's going to solve his defensive issues, because on the offensive side, Lincoln Riley can figure it out.
Oh yeah, Dave. We've said forever, if USC can get a defense and Lincoln Riley can get a defense and a defensive coordinator he can trust that can do that job for him, man, look out. And yeah, what you alluded to, they might have that now. And D'Anton Lynn from UCLA, great hire. What a great game plan they had, Dave. The big question for both these teams was defense, and I thought both these teams' defense looked really well. Blake Baker coming in to LSU from Missouri, great hire for this LSU team. Really answered a lot of questions both these teams did defensively. Garrett Nussmeier looked pretty good early on, was really spot on, didn't feel like he missed many throws. Kyron Lacey, we've talked about him here a little bit, proved that he's going to be a problem for opposing teams, was an absolute stud. Just throw it up, he'll find it, he'll make something happen. But yeah, Miller Moss and this USC offense really looked really good throughout the rest of the game. I think LSU had 10 penalties. That's going to be a killer. It looked to me down the stretch at the end of this game, and Brian Kelly himself said it, USC just outcoached this LSU team down the stretch, Dave. USC gets the ball back with under 2 minutes and a timeout, and they're down. Or sorry, I think it was a tie game. They get the ball with under 2 minutes. They go down the field. They score. Blake Baker and this LSU defense couldn't get a stop to hold on. USC prevails. 27-20 game. What a great start to the season. Just another absolute banger slugfest in week 1. Really gets us excited for the rest of the season. Man, USC could be off to the races. If this defense holds up and Miller Moss and this offense take the next step, I do expect big things for Lincoln Riley, and maybe you and I can take a step back off of him and his hot seat talk we've had a little bit here. Maybe it heats up for Brian Kelly. What do you say, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. Brian Kelly had a text message on his way home that night. Somebody, a booster, athletic department, somebody let him know, hey, don't let this happen again. This is LSU. The standards are different. We don't do that here. So, only time will tell where they go from here. But based off of week 1, week 0, we do have our top 12 for the playoff teams. These aren't going to shock you too much. Granted, it's only been week 1, so a couple of teams dropped out. Only team that dropped out, it was pretty reasonable. I personally think our number 12 spot, little spoiler for you, Liberty University out of Virginia. I think they're probably going to sit there. It's their job to lose this spot if it really makes it.
Hey, I completely agree with you, David. It's 100% their job to lose this spot. That is very well put. I'm going to kick it back over to you. I just wanted to say I totally agree on that. There's not going to be a whole lot of change here based on performance. We still think these teams are good, even though they didn't have the best performances week 1. We still think these teams are going to hold their spot. We did a full schedule preview, and we think these teams continue to win those games like we have talked about. And I'm going to kick it back over to Dave here. But, yeah, Dave, absolutely. This is Liberty's spot to lose, even though they didn't look great week 1.
Looking at Liberty's schedule, it's nothing too crazy. It's games that you should win. So going off, obviously Liberty's are number 12. We've got Oklahoma State at 11, Mizzou at 10, Ohio State 9, Alabama 8, Notre Dame 7, Ole Miss 6, Penn State number 5, K-State number 4, Miami number 3, Georgia number 2, and then at number 1, we've got Oregon. Now, note to mention, the top 4 teams get an automatic in. Now, it's not the top 4 teams, but it's the top 4 teams for the big conferences. But at number 12, Liberty gets in because it will be the best group of 5 team in. So that's why Liberty gets that chance at number 12 and why we mentioned so heavily that it is their spot to lose. Next, Colin, hit us with the weekly awards. What does that look like?
Yeah, just some guys we want to talk about here. Obviously, earlier we alluded to the fact that we may not get to talk about every game or every player. There's some big players we wanted to talk about. I just want to mention their names on this show a little bit, let people know we're not forgetting about them. Dylan Raiola, freshman quarterback starter for Nebraska this season. Just want to name drop him here a little bit. Looked very good early on in his season. Nico Iamaleava for Tennessee quarterback. Just want to mention him a little bit here. Looked like an absolute stud as well. I'm sure there's plenty of players that we're forgetting or plenty of good teams that we didn't get to cover today, but just wanted to name drop some of those players. We are going to every week drop some weekly awards here. We're going to give our worst performance, best performance, and players of the week. And our worst performance this week, week 1, we're going to give it to Virginia Tech. We are so disappointed in them. We can't express it enough. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I was so high on them, was really trying to sell this thing. Maybe they turn it around and right the ship the rest of the way. Also, honorable mention for worst performance, Oregon. We are very disappointed with your performance as well. You did enough to edge it out. But hey, we're looking at you to go be the number 1 seed in the playoff. Piss poor performance, right the ship, get it right, blow these teams out. Our best performance of the week, we're going to give it to 3 teams here. USC, what a massive start for them week 1 to go beat LSU at a neutral site. What an absolute start for Lincoln Riley in this program this season. Also going to name drop Miami here. What a great performance to go into the swamp, beat a Florida team where they only had a margin for -2.5 on them. They went in, showed all the doubters that they're the real deal. They're here to stay. They're really going to make a playoff push this year. Another mention for this on best performance, Georgia beating this Clemson team, leaving no doubts, absolutely kicking their ass in every aspect of the game. Georgia, great performance. We'll leave it up to you guys on who you think's the best performance of the week between those 3, but we really were impressed with all 3 of those teams so far. Our players of the week, we're going to give it to Tetaroa McMillan, had 10 catches for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns for Arizona. Absolute stud. Absolute stud. Look to see his name in the first round of the draft this coming season. Also, we've talked about him a couple times here. Just want to mention another name here for player of the week in Nico Iamaleava for this Tennessee program. What an absolute stud he is. Look for big things in this Tennessee program as well throughout the rest of the season. So, Dave, week 1's in the books. What's your thoughts so far?
Say it again. We love college football because of how unpredictable it can be. You lose your QB, you lose your running back, you lose your wide receiver, you lose your center. It changes it all. So there's a lot of changes, a couple injuries, some serious, some not. We also had some players that probably didn't perform like they were supposed to. We may have some shuffling around, like in the case of Florida State, which is currently playing right now. They may look to find another, to play a different quarterback. But overall, I think it was a great week 0, great week 1. But I'm very high on Georgia. I think, I don't see anybody knocking Georgia off. Well, I was very high on Oregon coming into the week, but they didn't quite perform like I wanted them to. So we'll look to see what that looks like. There's still a lot of time. A lot of changes are going to happen. Other teams are going to get injuries. Other teams are going to lose players here and there. So very exciting. I'm excited for week 2. It seems like all year we have great games every single week, week in and week out. So very pumped about it. Can't wait to keep talking to you guys about college football. And again, we will be dropping a preview to the week later this week, just so you guys know what's coming up. Big games ahead. Talk to us, Colin.
Yeah, we plan on getting you guys another episode later in the week. We're going to do a preview of week 2, and we're going to drop our best bets for week 2 with our new segment that we like to call it. We gave it a new name. We like to call it Book It. We're going to go ahead and tag that every week as one of our new segments for you guys to follow us on. 8-4, like we mentioned earlier, to start the season on the bets so far. Week 2 looks to be a great week as well. We'll try to get back to you guys and get in the lab here Thursday or Friday night and get that out Friday or Saturday to you. We're pretty busy, but like we said, we love doing this. This is our favorite thing to do for the week. We love all the support we have from you guys so far, and we're just going to keep at it here. And like Dave said, we love college football. We know you guys love college football. Man, if you guys want to reach out to us, ask us any questions on Spotify, email, X, Twitter, whatever you call it, Instagram. We're going to try the TikTok thing. Anywhere you can reach us if you want to ask questions, we'll feature it on our next episode. We'll drop your name, we'll drop your question, and we'll answer your question the best to our abilities. We look to keep giving you guys all the important information. So if you guys just keep following us, give us a like, subscribe, whatever it is, wherever you follow us at, just keep doing your thing, keep supporting. We love y'all. Look to see us later in the week. We out.